So this is Paleac, and in this tutorial we're going to be talking about the extremely interesting and not at all boring or monotonous topic of aligning the phase of your kick and your sub to clean up your low end and just make your mix generally better. So this is a topic that was very recently brought to my attention, and I feel it's pretty necessary to show you because my previous tutorial on dynamic sub basses is very likely to introduce some sort of phase issues between your kick and your sub, and it wasn't something that I considered at the time. And if you like this video and you would like to support the channel and get access to a bunch of audio effect racks and samples and instruments that I've made, then come check out my Patreon. You can spend $15 to get access to a bunch of shit. All the stuff that I've covered in all these previous tutorials and audio effect racks and devices. So right here, I got this sub, then I got this kick, and then I'm gonna put them together. And you think that sounds cool, right? But you're wrong. Because look here, I just printed it down here, and you can see that the waveform goes up and down. This is just corresponding to the cones of your speaker pushing in and out, which creates, you know, the bass. And then when it comes over to this point here, this little crossover between when the kick starts to fade and the sidechain releases on the sub, they start to meld together, and then there's phase cancellation right here. So it starts to dip down a little bit. If your sub is in MIDI and it's playing every time your kick plays, this is a pretty easy fix and easy solution. You can just like open up whatever oscillator that you're using your sub with and play with the phase until you get something that is in line with each other. So like right here, look at this. It's going up and down the whole way through. It doesn't really falter or pause. There's like a very slight dip in audio here, but that's like negligible. So this is much cleaner, and it's going to translate better onto louder sound systems with a strong sub. Another way that you can approach that is you can simply take a utility, put it on your kick, and then invert the phase. And that should do the same thing as moving the phase here 180 degrees. So sometimes this can work. Sometimes you need to get a little bit more precise movement that's why controlling the phase in the whole 360-degree spectrum can be better for getting more exact results, but you can quickly just invert the phase on the kick. Like, yeah, there's that, and then there's that. So you notice when I'm going back and forth between these two, there are slight differences. Looks like this one's a little bit better. This one here, it gets like squished for a moment into these two little waves here, whereas this is more of a constant stream, so that will translate better. So if you're making like psytrance or house music or something where the kick plays at the same time as your sub note plays every single time, then it's an extremely easy fix. You could just change the phase on one of them, make sure that it's consistent for the entire track, and then you're set. Now, if you're like me and you make like slower music where like there's like long bass notes that like ring out over multiple kicks, then the kicks are going to be playing at different phases each time. Or if you have like pitch modulation or melody in your sub bass, then it's going to be different every time. And then you have to take a much more tedious and painful approach of going one by one for every single kick and sub, and then making sure that the phases are aligned. And it sucks. It's not fun at all. But I figured out a pretty decent workflow for making it go by a little bit faster, and that's what I'm here to talk about. So here I have this song that I'm working on. It's a work in progress. The mix is super messy, but here's what it sounds like. So here's a pretty quick track breakdown. I got these drums here. The snare is just 3 different snares layered together. You got this guy, this guy, this guy. The perks, I basically just threw a shit ton of perks together into a sampler and then used an arpeggiator to create random rhythms. If you're interested in that, check out my sound design generators tutorial, but links in the description. But basically, I just did that and then found cool little bits that sounded cool together and then placed them in the drum loop. And then the main synths here all come from using the wavetable synthesizer. So wavetable is cool because it has MPE built into it, which means you can tune it in interesting ways. So it's compatible with the microtuner Ableton Max for Live device, which means you can use microtones. So this is set to 22 tone equal temperament. There's 22 pitches instead of 12. So instead of one octave being from C to C, one octave ends up being what, C to A sharp, the octave above it. It's weird, but you can get pretty creative and it opens up like a lot of possibilities and helps with writer's block, I think, to experiment with microtones. So you should do it. If anyone's interested, I can make a video on that. But the actual synth sounds basically is just using basic shapes, and I am automating the fold parameter, which can sound cool. And then I also am using these this filter thing. So you can check this out by looking at my tipper squelches tutorial that I made. It basically goes over using a lot of complicated LFOs to get controlled randomness for creating basically formant filters. So I basically just have a formant filter and the basic shapes thing, then I'm just transitioning basic shapes between a sine wave and a square wave and a saw wave, and then I'm folding it a ton, and I just automated everything to my taste. These guys are just the exact same melody as this, but then I repitched it and stretched it out a ton and saturated it, and then just cut them up and placed them around for fills and stuff. So it's all made from the same source. Okay, so you get the point. Sounds cool. Now I'm gonna go through this, and I'm gonna align the kick and the sub for everything, mostly by just inverting the phase of the kick. So this process sucks. It's tedious, but this is how I figured out a way to get through it pretty quickly. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna create a group, and I'm gonna create another group inside that group, and then I'm gonna duplicate that. So I'm gonna have 2 groups in a group, right? And then I'm gonna call this normal phase. I'm gonna call this one invert phase. And then I'm gonna create 2 audio tracks within each subgroup, and I'm gonna take in from the kick drum. Actually, no, there's a bunch of group processing going on. So I'm gonna take the in from my drums group here. I'm gonna take the in from my subgroup, and then I'm gonna set these both to in. So now these are just gonna be playing that audio basically. And then I'm gonna do the exact same here. Actually, I'm just gonna copy these 2 and paste them in here, and then delete these 2. And then for the drums, I'm going to throw the utility on here, and then I'm going to invert the phase. So what this is doing is I am basically playing the sub and the drums together. And then I'm doing that again here, but the drums are inverted. And that way I can record from both of these pretty easily, right? So I'm going to name this phase alignment. This is just a temporary group. And so I'm going to go in here, and then I'm going to mute. Honestly, I'm just going to mute all of the shit except for the kick. Just because there's like a lot of group processing on this, and some of the stuff can invert and change the phase of the kick in the end. So if I'm routing directly from the kick into the sub, that might not actually be the true picture of what's happening when it goes into the master, right? We have this phase alignment stuff going. And then I'm going to create 2 more audio tracks. And then the first one, I'm going to take the input. Where is phase alignment? Okay, I'm going to take the input from the normal phase, and I'm going to take the input from the invert phase. And then I'm going to enable recording for both of these. And I'm going to go to the top here, and I'm going to mute this. So I put this all in a big group, because when you put tracks in a group and then you mute the group itself, the audio is still playing. It's just like hidden. It's just muted within the group. And that's important for trying to record from this information, because we want the audio to go through here and play this. If we mute this group, it doesn't actually play, and you won't be able to record from the group, the subgroup, right? I hope this all makes sense. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to enable record on both of these, hit Control click to enable record on multiple stuff. And then I'm going to press record, and then this should be playing just the kick and the sub in this guy, and then the inverted phase kick and the sub on this guy, so we can just play them and look at both of the polarities at the same time, instead of having to go through manually and checking for every kick. Okay, so let's take this from both, and then let's make it much louder. Want to be able to look better. And then here's the fun part. So I'm going to put the invert phase on top of the other one, because what we're going to do is I'm going to take a utility, and then I'm going to turn on phase inversion on this, and then we're going to automate it to turn on and off for which one's correct. So off means we're using the bottom one, the normal phase, and on means we're using the invert phase. And so we're going to go through this, check every single kick, find the ones that seem good, automate this to be on or off for that correct one, and then we're going to throw this on the actual kick in the end. So here, you can look here, this phase sucks. So we're going to keep this on off for that kick. And then we're going to go to the next kick. Then here, this one doesn't seem to matter. Seems like there's no sub at that moment that plays. And then here, seems like this sub gets a little bit more quiet. Let me make these even louder. Okay, yeah, this here, it's much more apparent now. This is a more consistent sub. This is less consistent, so we're going to keep this on off. Here, yeah, it gets more weirder here. Honestly, both of these are pretty weird. In this case, you might want to go in and manually change it by nudging the phase of the sub or something. Yeah, they're both fucking weird. So there's this dip here, and then there's this like double dip here. So I think I'm going to keep it on off. We go here. Okay, now we're going to want to invert the phase. This one sucks. That one's better. So we're going to turn this to on. I'm going to go here. This one sucks. We're going to keep this on off. Same thing here. I'm going to invert it here. And then you can also use control and page down to just move to the right. Page up and page down. So you can like do less scrolling. Want to like make the workflow a little bit better. But I guess I'm going to keep that off. This one, I'm going to turn this on. I'm going to keep this off. One. This one's pretty hard to tell. Let me keep this off. It's on. So yeah, I think you get it. And basically, you're gonna go through your entire fucking song and do this. Now, I recommend you do this at the end of your mixing and mastering process, because you could very easily change the phase relationship between your kick and your sub, especially if you're using EQs, because EQs are just, you're just delaying signals and sending them together in different ways, and that can create phase issues. So now that, let's pretend we do this for the entire song, and we adjusted the phase for everything. You take this utility, and then you go to your drums, and then you throw it on your kick right here. And then now the kick is just going to invert the phase whenever it gets fucked, and the signal should be cleaner. So yeah, I hope that was helpful. Have fun. It's not the worst thing in the world. It's pretty bad. It's not fun at all. But I have noticed that my low end has been a lot cleaner after doing it. And it's something that I really wasn't even aware of and didn't hear until it was pointed out to me. So yeah, that's all. I hope you find that helpful.